Well, what I've got is a little bit of a problem here. Looks like I'm going to have to void a warranty. I want this car to be high enough so that it'll go over a speed bump without dragging on it, and curves and approaches and stuff like that without dragging. So in order to get like 5 inches off the ground right down here, I have to bring this up actually another 3/4 of an inch, and I've only got about an inch of thread engagement in the bottom of this tube right now. So to get the thread engagement I need and the ride height I need, I've got about 3 inches that I can go here. I need to go down about 3/4 of an inch. These bolt holes are 3 inches apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this bolt down to this hole. I'm going to extend this bracket down so that I have a place to mount this bolt hole. That will allow me to be able to run this all the way up to about here. I'll have plenty of thread engagement. If my welds are good, it should be strong enough to hold. And that should completely void any warranties that these may have had on them. That was about 6 months ago. This is what it looks like today after a whole lot of planning and a little bit of work. So after a few calculations, a little bit of measuring, this is what I came up with. I had to build a jig to position the new holes. Had to beat some pieces of steel into the appropriate shape. But I do have strut engagement down to about here, and I have all the ride height that I need by lowering these bolt holes. I also had to make a spacer for this because the spindle wasn't wide enough to fit in between these two plates. The two plates are manufactured way too wide for this, and if you just torque the bolts down, the plates will end up angled in like this. They'd be tight on the outside edge but not on the inside edge, and I just wasn't happy with the way that was going to end up. So I just cut a piece of aluminum, drilled 2 holes in it, and put that in there, and that should work just fine. A whole lot better than clamping them and twisting them out of shape. So if you're interested, what follows is the jig I built and a little bit of the fun I had extending these so I get the proper ride height out of these coilovers and still have enough thread engagement so they wouldn't fall apart when I was driving down the road one day. First thing I realized was moving down to the bottom hole was going to present some problems because the hole spacing wasn't exactly the same from the center line of the coilover. So I had to drill a new hole, and I started from there. Alright, there seems to be some missing video, but the general idea of making this jig, the center tube up here is tight against the jig. This whole portion was moved down, and I needed to center punch 2 marks to drill this hole, which is this one, and this hole, which is this one. Then I just slide the whole jig up, put the bolt through what is now going to be my top hole, and then I have to build metal brackets to make a point for this hole to be drilled in. You'll see how all this works out as we move along. And to accurately mark these holes, you're going to need a center punch. Well, if you don't have a center punch that's as big as the hole you need to drill, you find a nut that your center punch will fit snugly into. You put that onto a bolt, chuck it into a lathe or a drill press, and just knock the corners off of the nut until the nut fits into the hole that you want to center punch. Works pretty good. Well, I was going to say just drop that on there, drop the bolt through the hole, and get it all lined up on my adapter jig plate dealy bob that makes one of these. But it's a little tight. Yeah, I think we talked about the extremely tight tolerances and precision specifications that these are manufactured to. Yeah, well, nothing a hammer and a wedge won't cure. Maybe. I hope. Precision made in China products. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. And that one fits right over it. Well, once we've completed a couple of minor adjustments, now we'll find out if the holes all line up. And then I just take one of these two little guys that I made, slap it on there, clamp it into position, reach through the back with the scribe a precision mark on it, and precisely drill a hole in here with the same amount of precision that the Chinese guys did when they made this part. It's going to work. And we should be able to hit it with a, plus or minus a 1/16 of an inch like they did. I covered up my hole. Have to move the clamp. That's a little bit better. A little deburring. Looking good. Line up the little additional collar here. I don't know why I needed that, but I just wanted to have it there. It just looks a little stronger. I don't know if it's actually going to make it any stronger, but it'll work. Yeah, I probably put a little bit too much effort into making these collars. I had to bore them out a little bit so that the threads of the coilover would clear if they were ever lowered all the way. Well, we've returned from a little bit of welding, a little bit of grinding to make things fit and lay flat. Now we'll just bolt it all together, weld it, and hope it goes on the car when we're done. It's gonna work. Maybe. I'm sure it's gonna work. I'm reasonably sure it's gonna work. The other one seems to work. All right, what I had before, and the ride height was a little bit too low still, was about this much engagement into the tube. What I'm gonna have now, it should be up there, and with these lower holes, I should get the ride height I need and have this down in here a ways, at least, so it's not wobbling around right there waiting to snap off. Well, because I've lowered these holes about 2 inches, I can raise it up another inch thread-wise and still have an inch more of ride height. So I'm a lot happier with the amount of thread engagement and the amount this strut goes down into the tube. So it won't rip it apart, hopefully. Now all I have to do is line all this up, and I'm going to do that without lifting it and pulling on it, because a couple days ago I decided I was going to line the other one up and just tweak a back muscle a little bit. Woke up the next morning and, well, I didn't do anything all day yesterday because my back hurt. So anyway, let's line this thing up. We'll just lower the car down to the bolt hole instead of trying to lift the bolt hole up to where the car is. A lot easier on the old back and all that stuff. Hey, hey, looks good, looks good. Both bolt holes lined up on the other side, so maybe they'll both line up on this side. Well, that didn't make it any better. Had to go in on the bottom a little bit. There we go. Now we'll bolt everything back together, set it back on the ground, check the ride height, adjust the ride height, get it right, and then we'll torque these bolts down. Oh my God, wheel spacers, we're all gonna die. That's all I'm gonna say on that. I'm not getting into that. Yeah, there, that ought to do it. Not the easiest way to do it, but it does work. And that should hold them on for a little while. And then later on, of course, I'll recheck the torque on them. Careful with the back. The secret to perfect cross threading is starting them with an impact. All right, going down, we have goals here. Number one is to get more thread engagement on the coilovers. Number two is to get it high enough off the ground so that, well, it's not dragging on the ground. And possibly I can get the lift out from underneath of it without having to use a jack to jack it up to get the arms of the lift out. And yes, the lift is loose. All right, now let's see exactly how high it really is. It looks good. Do some measuring on it, figure out where I'm at as far as height. But the arms are loose underneath of it. It's about the right height. Looks like it anyway. Do a little measuring, figure that out. I think we've got it. It wiggles a little bit. Man, them springs are stiff. Well, I think that's about where we're going to leave this video. Next thing I got to do is just hook up the brake lines. I've got all the lines routed. I just have to hook them to the calipers. The calipers are mounted, all that good stuff. I need to get some emergency brake cables that will work on this car, whatever length that happens to be, and finish my emergency brake cable brackets. And once that's done, this car should be able to move and stop itself. Drivable, sort of. But, and the next thing I'll work on after that, I guess, is going to be putting new quarter panels on it. I'm really looking forward to that. Well, I am looking forward to it, but I really don't know what I'm doing with that. So that'll be interesting. Well, until next time, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching.